With Chainsaw Man chapter 189, we pick up where the last one left off, and we get another interesting turn of events. Yoshida's plan wasn't necessarily to drag each other out of the mouth of Chainsaw Man right away, but rather test out whether or not their devil powers will work once a part of their body has been exposed through the mouth of Chainsaw Man, which is the case here, but there are some drawbacks, some monumental drawbacks at that. When Yoshida uses the tentacle from the octopus devil, it wraps around the pillar in the background, and off screen it gets chopped off by the aging devil, which upon first glance you might think that that's a waste of an opportunity, but even in moments like this you're able to gain valuable information, and that's exactly what happens here. Yoshida was able to confirm that once a part of their bodies exits through the mouth of Chainsaw Man, they'll be able to use their powers, but sadly there's another weakness to this. They're basically flying blind here when they attempt to use their powers because they literally can't see what they're aiming for, and the aging devil immediately clocks what it is that they're trying to do, which is force their way out of Chainsaw Man, and things heat up from there. Yoru wastes no time taking control over Mitaka's body, and she shoves her hand into Denji's mouth and shoots off a blast at the aging devil that is strong enough to leave a hole in the wall. And to give Yoru her credit, this is a very smart idea. You still have a small surprise advantage, but not much now that the aging devil knows that you're trying new things and that you are trying to escape. This is where we learn that Yoru and Yoshida aren't able to see what it is that they're aiming at. However, not to be outdone and not to be discouraged, Yoru decides to take things a bit further and defy the law of physics by putting herself all the way into Denji's mouth, face first, with her booty twisting in the air as she attempts to get herself through. But this is where we get some of the more twisted humor from Fujimoto, which is the aging devil. He points his finger at Yoru as she is looking up at point blank range, and for a moment you think to yourself that this is going to be it. Yoru and Mitaka, they're going to be having their names written on a tombstone somewhere, but that's not what happens. When the aging devil says bang, there is no explosion. Instead, Yoru just begins to age like crazy. Her face begins to sag and her skin becomes super wrinkly, and Fujimoto, being the devil that he is, has the next panel with Denji vomiting, almost as if to say that Yoru both figuratively and literally made him vomit after Mitaka's body began to age. It is very subtle, but the implication is that beauty is an aging form of currency was sprinkled into the narrative here very subtly, and Fujimoto leans into it even further by having the humor be used in this moment as well. Yoshida sees Yoru screaming in terror, and he asks, is she okay? And the only time she feels better is when she asks the two of them if she's still beautiful, with her face now returned to normal. And both of them express how attractive she is, which it should be worth noting that Denji only sees Mitaka, he doesn't see Yoru. The decision to use humor here to poke fun at the stereotypical belief that women are extremely vain about their appearance was both a bold choice, but also one that I do think works well in this moment, and it fits what we've seen with Chainsaw Man with some of the humor, and we see Yoru getting super pissed off right afterwards, which makes this whole scene even more funny, and it makes it even more balanced. It's not the near-death moment where the aging devil could have killed her. It's not even her failing to get a rock-solid attack landed on the aging devil. It's Yoru being forced to age at the hands of the aging devil that's really pissing her off. It's not the best use of the scene itself, but the duality of the slightly dark humor and the seriousness of their situational development is something I thought worked very well here, especially once you get to the whole plot twist of Fumiko later on, because they now have a confirmation about what they can and they cannot do, which means that Yoshida, being the sussy baka that he is, has already begun thinking about what it is he's going to do next. Meanwhile, the aging devil, who we learn each of the three heads has its own personality and can talk independently and request the small intestines of all devil hunters, and they're having a debate on whether or not fighting is becoming futile and whether or not the taste of human flesh is getting tiresome. In short, the aging devil ironically is both a bit of a foodie who needs variety in what it is that it's eating and has the attention span of the average TikTok user. In any event, we shift over to a rather interesting moment where Fumiko just mind fucks all of us by revealing that there's a second Fumiko, and she stepped out of the shadows to reveal that she has made a promise to herself that she would side with whoever is the likely winner in this battle, which brings into question who her devil contract is with, whether or not she has multiple contracts, and it's all because of what we're seeing with her standing right there. But she's now chosen to side with Yoshida and Denji in this battle. In the blink of an eye, she has the second Fumiko state that she will give her entire heart to Yoshida, who then sacrifices it to the octopus devil, which he then summons the massive head of the octopus devil with the intention of swallowing the aging devil. Now, while this might seem like a good thing, Fumiko choosing to side with Denji and Yoshida, I do want to say that what Fujimoto's doing here is a nice bit of character writing with Fumiko, which I know when it comes to this character, quite a bit of the fandom hates her, but let me cook for a minute and I promise you the food I'm about to serve up is not food poisoning centered around a special ingredient named Fumiko. She's fickle in nature, and in the chapter where Fujimoto chose to highlight the stereotypical vanity of women, he basically is doing the same thing here with Fumiko, taking it to an extreme in the way that we've seen him do with several other female characters outside of Reze, who we shall allow no Reze slander here on the channel. She's up there with Makima. She is to be considered a protective class. Whereas Yoru was vain, Fumiko was fickle, being presented as a ticking time bomb. She is set to turn at any given moment because she literally tells us she is going to side with whomever she thinks is going to come out on top. It also makes you question what other contracts she has in terms of devils, because we have that second Fumiko there, and the aging devil, most importantly, saw her physically in that moment, the second Fumiko. This is a character who, if we go back through her journey in Chainsman Part 2, what has been the one thing that we know for certain Fumiko's good at? She is good at looking out for herself. When times get tough, she runs away. She literally looked at the mob that was chasing after Nayuta and she cut bait and she ran because she values self-preservation above all else, which isn't something being ridden by mistake. It is very intentional. I also want to take it a step further. Do any of us truly think that she died here? I don't. Could she have been potentially making a doll or a clone? We don't still know the origin of the original fake Chainsman. We know that there were Chainsman imposters running around. However, if she was able to make clones, it potentially couldn't be limited just to herself, which means making a fake clone of Chainsman to stir the pot before all the others start to pop up. Depending on how long she's been working with Fami, that could be a possibility. Now, this does make you wonder though, given Fumiko's shift, is the end finally here for the aging devil? Because it certainly seems like Yoshida and company, they don't have a choice here except to go for the kill, which will be very interesting given Yoshida did say that they are basically enemies since his interests are aligned with public safety, but his hand, it might have been forced here. Thankfully, the next Chainsman chapter is only a week away, so we don't have to wait long for the climax that we're ultimately rushing towards, but in the end, if this is the end, then at the very least, we have put this part behind us unless the aging devil has something else up his sleeves, which regardless, I do believe it's shown enough to show that it is worthy of the title of being a primal devil.